Despite a definite trend towards gender equality in Western societies, parenthood remains a very gendered social role. At present, women still take on 70% of childcare-related tasks in the family. Expectations of women regarding the parental role are still very high. They can, of course, also be involved in the professional world, but then they accept working the double shift, or what is essentially 2 working days, one at their place of work and one at home. On the other hand, expectations of men as providers or breadwinners remain very high. They can, of course, be involved in the upbringing and care of their children to the extent that they wish, but if they are not involved, they are less likely than women to be considered indifferent or negligent towards their children. Logically then, a higher level of parental burnout is observed among mothers because they experience more of the daily stressors linked with parenthood. For both men and women, however, there is a common mechanism that leads to the development of parental burnout. We've already discussed how this mechanism concerns an imbalance between parent-related risks or stressors and the resources needed to deal with them. The graph shown here represents the relationship between the risk-resource balance and parental burnout. Parents in the burnout category are on the far right. These are the parents who present at least 2/3 of the symptoms every day. As we explained in the video on the etiology of parental burnout, we can see that mothers here, represented by the solid line, become burned out when their risks are no longer compensated for by their resources. The balance is then below 0, meaning that the quantity and intensity of stressors is greater than the quantity and intensity of resources. As for the fathers, here represented by a dashed line, we see that they fall into burnout even when there are still resources to compensate for the stressors present. We can once again imagine the situation of mothers and fathers by using our parental balance. Burnout occurs in mothers when the balance tilts into disequilibrium, whereas in fathers it occurs before there is an imbalance. How can we understand this result? Well, fathers can be considered more vulnerable to stress in the specific context of parenting because through gendered socialization, which is how people learn to behave as a man or a woman in today's society, fathers have been less well prepared than women to deal with the specific stressors of parenthood. While little girls have been encouraged to take care of, protect, and clothe their dolls, small animals, or figurines, little boys have spent their leisure time dressing up as superheroes, building castles, or running around. When these boys and girls have grown up and become parents, the tasks involved in caring for and raising children generally take more effort for fathers than they do for mothers. Parenting care and nurturing behaviors would in general be less automated for fathers. These behaviors would therefore require more energy and concentration from men, whereas they would come more easily to women. Now let's turn to the effect of gender on the consequences of parental burnout. Does parental burnout lead to more damaging consequences for mothers or for fathers? Our research shows that parental burnout has the same consequences for both parents with regards to alcohol consumption and sleep disorders. For both mothers and fathers, an increase in burnout leads to an increase in alcohol consumption and sleep disorders. On the other hand, the consequences of parental burnout that relate to suicidal and escapist thoughts, as well as those involving child neglect, increase more for burned out fathers than they do for burned out mothers. Let's see how we can plot this on a graph. So first of all, suicidal and escape ideations. Overall, women have more suicidal and escape ideations than men, but an increase in parental burnout induces a greater increase in this type of ideation among fathers than among mothers. With regard to neglect, we find that when the level of parental burnout is low, the frequency of neglectful behaviors is similar among fathers and mothers. On the other hand, when the level of burnout is high, the frequency of neglect is higher among fathers than among mothers. How can we understand these differences? One potential explanation is that parental identity is more central for mothers as compared to fathers. As a result, neglectful behaviors and the idea of abandoning one's children, for example by taking one's own life, are more threatening transgressions towards the identity of the woman than towards the identity of the man. Mothers would therefore make more effort to repress these behaviors or ideas when they are burned out. However, this logic does not apply to violent behavior. Indeed, in a society such as ours, which explicitly discourages severe punishment and violence against children, efforts to suppress these behaviors are enacted similarly by both mothers and fathers. It can therefore be concluded that parental burnout does not only concern mothers, even if they are more exposed than fathers to the specific stressors related to parenting. Fathers, for their part, are more vulnerable to parenting-related stressors. We could say that the parental balance of fathers is less resistant to the accumulation of risk factors, and their needs in terms of resources are greater. Lastly, an increase in parental burnout produces a stronger form of withdrawal from parenthood among fathers than among mothers.